All right, welcome everyone. We're doing something different today. We're doing something non-Mets related. Thank God, gets to talk about another team. As I'm joined by Colin Craig, who runs the Rangers Report by CFM. As in this video, we're going to be grading the Texas Rangers off season. I've made a couple of videos about the moves the Rangers have made because they've made some big moves that are worthy of talking about. So, Colin, tell us about your channel and what it is that you do over on your YouTube side.
Yeah, so like Frank said, my name is Cullen Craig, and basically I'm your reporter for everything Texas Rangers news, rumors, highlights, scouting reports. If you're into anything Texas Rangers related, come check out my channel, and most likely I'll have a video for you guys.
Yeah, and you're putting out a lot of content. I mean, I see it. It's just about like every day is something new. You're looking at a lot of different angles of the team, which I really like. I think that's a great idea. And for people watching on Colin's channel, if you don't know me, Frank About Sports, I usually cover myself because that's my favorite team. But during the off season, I was kind of talking about everybody. You know, whoever was signing, talking about this team, talking about that team. Gonna be doing some predictions like right before regular season, so things like that. And live streams every now and then, talking whatever baseball, sports related stuff. And that's what I've been doing. So let's go right into it. Like I said earlier, Texas had a big offseason, and one of the big moves, we'll start off with the biggest one first, was signing Corey Seager. I mean, we knew
Yeah.
that going into this offseason, the big talk was you got a lot of big shortstops out there. And I said in my video, and Texas got two of them. So that really was crazy because we had so many predictions. I mean, is Corey Seager going to go back to Los Angeles? A lot of Yankee fans want to get Corey Seager, but no, he ends up going for the Texas Rangers, and Texas really paid up to get, going the 10 years mark to pull it off. You don't see many 10-year contracts, but Texas felt it was worth the risk. And I think it was because Corey Seager, he's only 27 years old. So it's not like you're getting a guy that's 30 and you're paying until he's 40. He'll be out of the contract when he's 37. So I really like that about him. And as we know, Corey Seager, great hitter. He batted 306 last year, only played in 95 games. If there is one concern with Corey Seager, I would say it is his health because he's a guy that we've seen him have other seasons like 2018 where he misses plenty of games. So as long as Corey Seager is healthy, this guy is going to be a tremendous hitter because he is not somebody that got lucky. When you look at his metrics, they back it up. It wasn't fluky. I mean, he hits the ball really hard just about every time he steps up into the box. He's not a great defender. He doesn't have great speed, but what Corey Seager does is he hits at a really, really high rate. So he definitely is going to provide a big boost to that Texas Rangers lineup, batting, right in the middle of it, being their shortstop. And then his counterpart playing right next to him is going to be Marcus Semien. The other big move that Texas made, going 7 years to get Samian, a guy 31 years of age, had a huge year with the Toronto Blue Jays after he had a little bit of a down 2020. You don't want to put too much stock in 2020 season because it was so short. He was an MVP finalist in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, with the Oakland Athletics.
Yes.
He was. He finished like third place. So there's a guy that is MVP caliber. And then he has a massive year with Toronto, hitting the over 40 home runs, 45 to be exact. So now he's going to play second base, which is what he did with Toronto for Bo Bichette. This is a guy that was a shortstop in Oakland, but now he played a year at second base, and he's going to be familiar with doing that, playing there right next to Corey Seager. And his metrics, while they're not as good as Corey, Marcus Semien has enough of a proven track record to where you don't worry if the guy is going to be able to be successful. And the fact that he's older than Corey Seager, he also gets less years than Corey Seager. So you definitely got to like that. They didn't give him 10 years and paying him until he's past 40. So I definitely loved that move from Marcus Semien. And then the other hitter that they got that was also via trade was getting Mitch Garver to be the catcher. That was a move. Again, nobody saw coming. They move on from IKF, Isaiah Connor Falefa. And we know Mitch Garver, as far as hitting, he's a guy that he's going to hit home runs. In 2019, he had the big 31 home run year. This year, 13 home runs, but only 68 games played. So we know that Mitch Garver has some big-time power, and he's going to be doing the catching. Obviously, Texas has Jose Trevino. They got some other pretty nice catchers, Jonah Heim, nice little switch hitter. But Mitch Garver's probably going to get the bulk share. And then the big pitching move I want to go over is Jon Gray, who's a guy that I liked for a while. He's with Colorado. And Texas gets him. They got him for a few years. And we look at his numbers. The one thing I find interesting about Jon Gray is that he comes from Colorado, a place that we know is a hitter-friendly ballpark. But when we look at his numbers, he actually was better at home than he was on the road. So I'm kind of curious to see how he adjusts to playing in Texas, brand new environment for him, going in a different league. So he's going to be facing a whole new group of hitters. He's going to have those guys playing behind him in Samian and Seeger. And Jon Gray, his metrics aren't amazing. And Texas is going to ask him to be the ace as just for now because, they didn't do too much rotation, also added Martin and Perez. But do you have any other thoughts on the big additions or maybe some of the smaller additions that I didn't get to?
Yeah, so I do think Jon Gray is going to be an underrated signing, in my opinion. Obviously, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, those guys you gave out big dollars to be your all stars. But I like the Mitch Garver trade because we didn't get much offensive production from Jonah Heim and Jose Trevino last year. And the question about Sam Huff, one of our top prospects, is can he be a catcher at the major league level? So I like the trade for Mitch Garver, but the thing about Jon Gray, I think it could be a really underrated signing, just like Mike Minor a few years ago and Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. The Rangers turned all those guys into all-star caliber pitchers. Obviously, Mike Minor just got old, but uh, in Coors Field, your sliders or your breaking pitches don't break as much. Like as they do in other stadiums. So even though Jon Gray's numbers were better at home versus the road, I think he can have more consistency now that he is with Texas. And obviously, Coors Field is a hitter's friendly ballpark. I do think the Rangers is a pitcher's friendly ballpark. So I do think Jon Gray can have a good success with the Texas Rangers this year and years to come, of course, because it was a 4 year, I think 3 or 4 year deal.
I feel like it was three, but well, it was 3 or 4 either way.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, you brought up a really good point about the way Texas has developed their pitchers. And we look at the rest of their rotation, having a guy like Dane Dunning, who they got from trading Lance Lynn, look at a guy like Spencer Howard, who they got from trading Kyle Gibson. So
Yeah.
I don't anticipate them trading Jon Gray, but who knows? Maybe they could develop into a guy that if at some point they were to trade him, they could get another nice young piece back. So who are
Also,
some of the players? No, go ahead.
another thing I want to note is that I think another underrated part about the Texas Rangers going into next or this year is our coaches. We kind of overhauled our entire coaching staff. Obviously, we kept Chris Woodward, but we hired entire new hitting coaches. We got Tim Hyers from the Boston Red Sox, and we got Donnie Eckert from the San Francisco Giants. Tim Hyers is our hitting coach. Donnie Eckert is our offensive coordinator, and both of those guys had really good things with their respective ball clubs last year. All those teams, like Donnie Eckert, turned Brandon Crawford into a really he was a good player, but he revived his career. Same with Evan Longoria and other players. So I'm excited to see what these hitting coaches can do with our new players and our older players as well.
Yeah, and those two teams, the Giants and the Red Sox, both came out of nowhere. Like no one predicted that the Giants were going to win over 100 games, and no one thought that the Red Sox were going to be a team that, listen, they're going to be the ones who win the wild card game, and they're going to make a pretty good postseason run. So if they could bring some of that success to Texas, help out these guys, whether it's Adolis Garcia or the Calhouns or whoever else is going to be in this lineup, I mean that's always a good plus because if you want to change it up, you feel that you need a new philosophy in there that matches what Chris Woodward is going for. That definitely is always a solid move. You never want to underrate the coach. Like we all love the big moves, getting the 10-year deal, 7-year deal, but sometimes the smaller move with the coaches can make a big impact. So are there any subtractions that you think could be kind of noticeable that it's things that Texas lost this guy and how they're going to fill in for this void?
Honestly, not really, because the only 3 free agents that we lost was Mike Fultonevich, Brock Holt, and Jordan Lyles, and all those guys were pretty terrible last year. We retained Charlie Culberson. We got him on a minor league deal again. I think the biggest thing that is really hurting our ball club is Jose Leclerc and Jonathan Hernandez. They're still injured from Tommy John, and they'll probably be back within the first 2 months of the season. Those guys are arguably their best relievers coming out of the bullpen. You can make an argument for Joe Barlow or somebody else, but with those guys not being there, that really hurts the Texas Rangers for sure, for the first 2 months at least.
Yeah, and they also have Josh Young, who's going to be hurt to start off the year. So
Yeah.
it looks like maybe Andy Ibanez is going to be playing third for now, or they could have somebody else. One of the other signings that I feel like has to at least be said is them picking up Brad Miller. I thought that was a really nice move, pretty late in the offseason because this is a guy that in limited playing time was able to hit 20 home runs with Philadelphia Phillies. Yes, he wasn't a hitter-friendly ballpark, but what you like about Brad Miller is that he plays all over the field. So maybe Texas is going to have him in the outfield to start the season. And if who knows? I mean, you made a video about the Texas Rangers potentially looking at Michael Conforto. I think he'd be a great fit for Texas because they could use another corner outfielder. And if you did that, maybe you could put Brad Miller back into that role of being a utility guy. Marcus Semien needs a day off. Okay, we're going to have Brad Miller play second. Oh, one of the outfielders needs a day off. Okay, Brad Miller could play there. Turns out the utility role again, you can get even better value out of it. So I definitely don't want to throw that under the rug like it was the big addition. I feel like that was nice. They also had Matt Carpenter on the minor league deal. So they've still made some other moves besides like the really big ones that everyone was talking about.
Yeah, I actually like the Brad Miller deal for sure. I do think he'll just be a platoon player, but there's nothing wrong with that because he really crushes right-handed pitching, but he's terrible against lefties, but that's okay. As of right now, I do think he'll be our left fielder to start the season, but who knows? He could platoon with Andy Ibanez. Who knows how the season will go? I mean, Eli White's doing really good in spring training, but I did make a video about the Rangers potentially signing Michael Conforto. There hasn't been any rumors saying, oh, the Rangers are definitely like in on him. But it does make some sense because the Rangers have already signed 2 players with a qualifying offer. So if they sign Conforto, who does have a qualifying offer, they would only have to give up a 4th-round pick and I think some international bonus pool money, which is a lot less than say, I don't know what teams haven't signed a qualifying offer, but say you're a brand new team that hasn't signed a player with a qualifying offer, you're giving up a 2nd-round pick and I think another late-round pick as well. So that'd definitely be a lot less that the Rangers would have to pay for a pretty good player in Michael Conforto.
Yeah, I mean, and we, as a Met fan, I know Conforto definitely had a down year, and I anticipate that his next year, whatever team it's going to be, he's definitely going to perform a lot better than he did this year. And like I said, I do think he'd be a good fit for Texas, but it remains to be seen where he's going to go. Because like you said, there hasn't been news about him with Texas or really any other team in particular. We haven't seen like, okay, this team and Conforto are in intense talks or in active discussions. We haven't really heard anything. So he might be a guy that could linger and whatever team picks him up later on. So if I had to grade the Texas Rangers offseason based off of everything, as much as I like what they did, as of right now, I have to give them a B plus. And the reason why is because while I do love their signings, I like Jon Gray, but I can't be like, okay, Jon Gray is going to go into the season as our ace. I can't have Martin Perez as pitcher number 2. Like I said, I love the guys they've added, but I think that there still is a bit of a weakness in the rotation. Like you said, the bullpen, you have a couple of those pitchers injured. So how much faith you have in it, and you're relying on some other guys to be everyday players when, like you said, maybe Brad Miller should be a utility player, not a starter. I mean, how much could Kole Calhoun still give you at his advanced age? You know, how is Andy Ibanez going to perform? So I love what they did. And I think what my big thing about Texas is I've said in some of my other videos, you see these teams like the Oakland Athletics, the Cleveland Guardians, the Cincinnati Reds that just gave up this offseason, didn't compete at all, didn't sign anybody, just gave everybody away. Meanwhile, a team like Texas said, you know what, we're at least going to be competitive. We're at least going to try, and gave out multiple big-time deals. So I definitely give Texas a standing ovation pretty much for being a team that said, you know, we're not going to be in those teams that kind of just give up. We're going to be competitive. And it's subject to change. If you add Conforto, if maybe they add another pitcher, whether it's trade or starting or whether it's a trade or free agency, I definitely could bump up the grade. But for me, I have a B plus. What do you have them at?
I'll definitely have it as an A minus because obviously, if you just look at the stats, obviously when you hand out big contracts, usually those guys don't perform in the later years. But that's really not my biggest worry right now. I think that's probably the only reason why it's an A minus. I think another reason why it's not an A plus is because the pitching is pretty weak. But like you said, the reason why it is an A minus, why it's pretty high, is if you look at our team from last year, we were the 3rd worst team in the league, and we were able to get guys to our team like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. I think that sends a really good message across the league that the Rangers are trying to compete. I wouldn't say this year, but in the following years. And as a fan of the team, it's nice to see, even after they trade Joey Gallo, that we are trying to get this thing up and running, especially with the new ballpark. It's really nice to see that the owners and the front office are committed to turn this thing around because we haven't been to the playoffs in 5 years, I believe. It's been quite a while. So that's my rating, an A minus.
Yeah, and that's fair. And what the good thing about Texas is that eventually, Jack Leiter is going to be the guy stepping into rotation. That's going to be a huge addition. You don't have to worry about Jon Gray or Martin Perez to be your 1 and 2. And like you said, this is just year one, pretty much, in Texas really being competitive because when you see them trade away Joey Gallo and some other pieces, you're like, okay, maybe they are in a bit of a rebuild. They're looking to get young players and maybe not be too competitive. But this year they showed, okay, we are going to start competing for it. We know Seattle was very aggressive this offseason. Houston wasn't aggressive as I hoped. Same for the Angels. I know they got a couple pitchers, but I thought the Angels could have done a little more with the pressure they have having guys like Ohtani and Trout. So the Rangers are at least going to make them competitive. We know that there is that extra wild card spot. So like you said, probably not this year, but maybe next year or year two. If they had another pitcher, let's say next year's free agency class, then you definitely could look at this team as, all right, this team is a team that's ready to compete. And hopefully Josh Young is ready to go by then. It's like, okay, now you got a nice little third baseman in there. So you definitely
Sure.
can make a really good team. And again, like I said, I give them a lot of credit for being a team that actually competed. We saw so many teams just not try. You can just go down the line, Pittsburgh, Arizona. I mean, there were plenty of teams that they didn't really show a willingness to compete. So I definitely love what Texas did. And do you have any other thoughts just about this offseason in general? Or maybe some like a player that you want to see them get that they didn't, or is there anything else?
Yeah, so I really want them to sign Clayton Kershaw because obviously he would have been probably the ace in our rotation. He's from Texas. It would have made a lot of sense. It kind of broke my heart to see him sign to the Los Angeles Dodgers, but I mean it makes sense for him just to go back to where the team he's known forever. But we could still try at him next offseason. But also, another guy that I wanted them to sign was Trevor Story. Whenever,
Mhm.
like a few weeks ago, the Rangers were in on him. I think it was Tim Hyers' son who actually leaked that news. I thought that would have been crazy if the Rangers were able to get Story, Seeger, and Samian all in the same offseason. So those were the two guys that I would still have wanted to get in free agency. Obviously, those guys are off the board. If the Rangers don't sign Conforto, I'm not too mad. But if you look more in advance, if the Rangers are competitive towards the trade deadline, I'd look at a guy like Luis Castillo that could definitely be a bona fide ace, or maybe John Means, who has some success and he has more years of team control. Those are some guys I'm looking at. And it kind of reminds me of the deal that the Rangers made 5 years, 6 years ago for Cole Hamels, whenever we weren't really like that team, but we traded for Cole Hamels and he got us over that hump and we made the wild card. Or no, we won the division. So those are two guys that I'd be looking at if we were competitive towards the trade deadline.
Well, then I have a name for you since talking about the trade deadline. This is a guy I think if he's not available this year, he'll definitely be available next trade deadline. What about Nelson Cruz? Because I think the Nationals signing him was a bit, puzzling when they look like a team that's kind of rebuilding. And the Nationals traded so many guys at the deadline last year. Would you like to see Texas bring back Nelson Cruz once again and be a Ranger again and be a DH one more time?
I mean, I think it's contingent on a few things. I think it's based off how Willie Calhoun does this year. Because if Willie Calhoun produces, then there's no point. But say Nelson Cruz is raking and Willie Calhoun isn't, there's an argument to be made. But also, what's going to be the prospect haul to get Nelson Cruz? So those are some things I'd be considering. But it definitely would be cool to see Nelson Cruz back in Texas for sure.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun name to throw out there. All right, so that definitely wraps it up. Do you have any other things you have planned that's coming out that you want to promote, or anything else going? Maybe some social media that people could find you at as well.
Um, I mean, I have a Discord, so if you're a big Rangers fan, check out my channel, and in the description down below, join the Discord and basically Rangers news rumors 24/7, because obviously I can't like make videos 24/7, so join that Discord. But if you're a Rangers fan, don't be shy. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and of course, if anyone enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment. What are your thoughts on the Texas Rangers offseason? And again, thank you for Cullen Craig for joining us. And until next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy. Let's go Mets and let's go Rangers. Have a good one, everyone.